Yeah. What's going on, everybody? It's me, Ben. I am live here on another episode of Have At It. This is episode 95. How is everybody doing? I'm been really busy. That's why I haven't been on here lately. I do apologize for that. But and actually I am kind of busy still, but I did make a little bit of time to come on here right now because we got a big news story that just broke today. Now, was it really a big surprise? It's kind of like the worst kept secret in the world. But for those who just tuned in or just found out, who maybe don't know, uh, Aaron Rodgers is officially flying to Pittsburgh right now, and he is going to sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Reported by several outlets, on X by Schefter, Rappaport, NFL.com. It's been reported that it's a 1 year deal. We don't know what the financials are on it, but just for this year. And listen, I think, come to think of it, it's kind of the worst kept secret. I mean, the Steelers been eyeballing Aaron Rodgers. They had him visit a few months back, the facility. Um, and then out in California, I forget where it was. It was UCLA or uh, Cal Berkeley, wherever Rodgers was at. He was having a throwing session with another new Pittsburgh Steeler, DK Metcalf, the wide receiver who got traded from Seattle and then signed a new $55 million deal. So, you kind of connect the dots right there. And um, here we are a few months later, and he is officially signed with the Steelers. Now, it is an upgrade, whether you like Rodgers or not as a person, doesn't matter. You know, as a for the Steelers, it's definitely an upgrade over Mason Rudolph. I mean, I couldn't imagine the Steelers going into the season having Mason Rudolph as their quarterback, starting quarterback. Um, Especially in that division where you got the Ravens, you got the Bengals. Um, but now you got a division where you have Aaron Rodgers, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. Um, that right there, is a division to watch all year if you like watching quarterbacks. Those are the three guys you want to pay attention to, especially when it comes down to division games. Um, Again, it's an upgrade for the Steelers. He is 41, but you'd rather have him start over Mason Rudolph without any question. Now, do we think that this is going to lead to the Steelers, perhaps going to the playoffs and not only going to the playoffs but having success in the postseason? That remains to be seen. I don't know. I don't. The last time the Steelers won a playoff game was in the mid 2010s. Um, it's been a long drought for them. Uh, the quarterback position hasn't been the same since Big Ben Roethlisberger retired several years ago. So they've been trying to find that quarterback ever since. They tried with Kenny Pickett when they drafted him in the first round. That was a disaster that never worked out. Now, ironically, Kenny Pickett's in the same division, but he's with the Browns, competing for a starting quarterback's job with Joe Flacco, the ageless Joe Flacco. So, they tried Russell Wilson last year. They tried Justin Fields. Um, and for Justin Fields, it gave him a second chance. He now signed with the New York Jets. And ironically, the first game for the Steelers in the regular season is against the New York Jets. We all know that that game's going to be probably shown in the majority of the country, with Aaron Rodgers going back to the Jets, going up against Justin Fields, who played for the Steelers last year. So that'll definitely be appointment television that day. I mean, week one of the NFL season always is, but especially that game. If you're just a casual fan, you don't have a team, you don't have any skin in the game, I'm sure you're going to want to watch this game in particular. So we'll see. We'll see. Again, Rodgers now being the starting quarterback for the Steelers uh, makes him better. Now, does it make him a division champion? Does it make him a Super Bowl contender? I don't think so. But, you know, he's going to have a better offensive line with the Steelers than he did with the Jets. Um, you know, he had Garrett Wilson last year. He had Devontae Adams for a little bit as far as the weapons go. Now he's got DK Metcalf, got Pat Fryermuth. The running game is going to be interesting. Jalen Warren is going to be the starter now, assuming he is. With Cordell Patterson, because Najee Harris went to the Chargers. So again, Rodgers should have a decent offense to work with. But, again, the offensive coordinator is Arthur Smith, who likes to run the ball a lot. And maybe that's a good thing for Aaron Rodgers at this point in his career. He can, just stay, try to stay healthy for one thing. Most important thing, stay healthy. He can have the running game will help. He won't have to throw as much. But I'm sure, with Rodgers on the team now, he's going to want to throw the ball at times. So, Arthur Smith may have to, adjust his offensive style and, try and do more of a passing kind of offense. But it's the Steelers, traditionally they love to run the football. So we'll see how it plays out. Now, again, I don't know if this makes them a Super Bowl team, but it definitely improves them, drastically. You can't go into the season with Mason Rudolph, or Skylar Thompson. They're not your answer. And, the Steelers know that in order to compete in this division and to get a playoff spot, they need to, be good at the quarterback position. And the Steelers got what they wanted, and we'll see what happens. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Again, I think we all knew this would eventually happen. It was just a matter of when. Aaron Rodgers likes to, play it on his timeline. He's not looking for you. You're looking for him. He's playing hard to get, and we'll see if it pays off for the Steelers. Again, it's just a 1-year deal, according to the reports that I read. And that's appropriate because again, he's not going to be your future. He's not going to be your franchise quarterback the next 5-6 years. He's going to be there for a year, and if it works out well, if he wants to play another season, then maybe you sign him again to another 1-year deal or something, depending on how they do, depending on how Rodgers does, stays healthy, most important thing. So we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. But that's pretty much my 2 cents about it. Some other news today. The Colts, they got hit with some injuries. For one, Anthony Richardson's not going to be back for a little bit. Still having some problems with his shoulder. Daniel Jones is going to be taking the first team reps in training camp until Anthony Richardson gets healthy. My thought on that is, it's now or never for the Anthony Richardson. If he can't get anything going this year, then I don't think he ever will. At least not with the Colts. And signing Daniel Jones was more of an insurance policy in case, Richardson, God forbid, gets hurt again or struggles. So, that's a shame because, the Colts wasted a draft pick on him, the first round draft pick on him. It's been just a tough time for the Colts in general. I mean, their owner, Jim Irsay, passed away a couple weeks ago. Um, Real unfortunate. It's just the Colts have been hitting. They've been hit hard, and then another injury happened today. Michael Pittman Jr., wide receiver for the Colts, he was down during practice. Took time to get up, and we don't know the extent of his injury. They hadn't said, but you lose him, then your offense is going to be decimated. They, Pittman's your playmaker, your best receiver, your number one. So you're going to put the bulk of the offense on Jonathan Taylor. I think that's not good, especially if Pittman suffered a serious injury, which we don't know yet. Maybe he didn't. Maybe it's just precaution. But yeah, for the Colts, tough break for them, man. Hopefully they can get healthy before the season starts because, again, they're in a division where you got the Houston Texans who won it last year, but they did struggle, with CJ Stroud not having an offensive line. The Jaguars were awful. Titans were awful. They're rebuilding. Word out of camp is Cam Ward is looking good so far. But again, that's training camp. It's OTAs, stuff like that, underwear camp. So you just don't know how they're going to look until you actually get into the game type of mode. So that division, if Houston somehow struggles, then it's really up for grabs. It really is. So the Colts, if they're going to make some noise this year in the AFC South, everybody's got to stay healthy. So, well, speaking of Indianapolis, let's switch gears. We got the NBA Finals starting tonight, 2025 NBA Finals between the Indiana Pacers and the Oklahoma City Thunder. I'll tell you right now, to me as a basketball fan, I like the matchup. I know a lot of people, would have liked to see like the Knicks in the finals, because they're the New York Knicks. It's New York, big market. With India, with Indy and OKC, smaller markets. But from a basketball standpoint, it's going to be a fun watch. Both teams I think are evenly matched, young, athletic, both very good defensively, offensively, very good. They got playmakers. For Indy, you got Tyrese Halliburton, who just keeps getting better and better. He became a big star in the postseason thus far with his performances. And obviously for OKC, you got Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. He won the MVP this year in the NBA, along with Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren. That tandem is just really good, young, and really impressive. It's really fun to watch them play. In Indy, same thing. Tyrese Halliburton, Miles Turner, Pascal Siakam. And the thing is, Siakam and Rick Carlisle, the head coach of the Indiana Pacers, they've won a championship. Carlisle won it in Dallas back in 2011. And then Siakam won it in 2019 with the Toronto Raptors on that team with Kawhi Leonard and Kyle Lowry. I mean, Fred VanVleet. They had some great players on that team as well. So Indy does have the experience with the guys that have been there. The coach has been there. Players have been there in the NBA Finals. They know what that's like. OKC's never been there before. The only person that on that team that's been to the NBA Finals is Alex Caruso, who was with my Lakers back in 2020 in the bubble. And they won a championship. Pains me to watch him play for another team because I love Alex Caruso, but we didn't re-sign him after that year. I wish we would have, but good luck to him. Tonight in this series, he's looking to get his second ring. But I think it's going to be an evenly matched series. I know a lot of people are saying that this could be a gentleman's sweep with OKC. I will say OKC will win this series. But Indiana's they're gonna give them a series. I think it's gonna go 6. I do. I really do. Again, there are times where Oklahoma City doesn't play well. They're going to have a night off, and the Pacers are going to take advantage of that. So, um, I'm going to go OKC in 6. I just think they're they're so deep. Not only do they have a great starting five, but they're so deep on the bench. Indiana has a bench too, but they just don't play as many as OKC. You know, OKC is one of those teams where I think they're really good at everything. They're good at 3-point shooting. They're good in the paint. Defensively, they can defend inside and then on the perimeter. They're long and lengthy. They can, just corral you, you know, with the ball or without the ball in your hands. They just make it so hard for offenses to get a flow going. For Minnesota, I mean, they for the most part completely shut down Anthony Edwards in that series against the Wolves. Um, you know, it's going to be very tough for Indiana to beat this team 4 times. That's a tall task. I mean, OKC again, and they have the home court advantage. Being at home is going to be that environment is going to be incredible. You could just hear it over your TV, just watching it, how loud that place is. So for Indiana to have a chance in this series, they do got to get one in OKC. If they can get a split in OKC, that'll give them a lot of confidence going into game 3 and 4 in Indy, but that's really about their only chance. But if OKC wins the first 2 home games, I think that's a wrap. Because OKC can win on the road as well. And Indiana, I'm not saying Indiana can't, but this is just a different beast you're playing than the Knicks, who they play their starting 5, pretty much 40 or more minutes a game. It also got Tom Thibodeau fired, from the Knicks for, not using his bench enough until he had to in the series. Which, by the way, I'm not the biggest fan of that firing. I feel like Thibs got a bit of a raw deal, but we'll see what happens. We'll see who they get as head coach. But I do feel like he got a raw deal. But anyway, back to this series, the Thunder and Pacers. For Indy, what they're going to have to do is, they're going to have to contain SGA. They're going to have to rebound the ball very well. Their bread and butter is rebound and get on the break, fast break. But the problem with that is OKC's very good, very good transition defense. They do everything so well. So Indiana they have to play flawless. They got to hit some threes as well. That's going to be the key here. And they got the shooter. Can Aaron Naismith get hot? Halliburton, and off the bench, TJ McConnell, can he provide a spark? Can he, at times he gets a little careless with the basketball. That's another thing. They can't turn the ball over against the Thunder. They have to limit their turnovers. And they cannot get guys like Jalen Williams going, Chet Holmgren, Dort, Caruso. I mean, they're just loaded. Even a guy like Cason Wallace, who you've never heard of, is hitting threes in that series against Minnesota. They're just so deep. But I will say with Rick Carlisle, he's got the coaching advantage. Mark Dagnall, this is his first finals. He's never been this high, on the mountain before. So this will be his first time. But Dagnall's a very good coach, But this is going to be a fun series. Hopefully, every game's close. I do see maybe a blowout or 2 in this series, but for OKC, they just have to play their game. Win on both ends of the court. Their offense is very dynamic. They share the basketball, space the floor very well. If it's not SGA, it could be Jalen Williams. If not Jalen Williams, and it's Chet Holmgren or Dort, or Alex Caruso. I mean, they hit you in, all over the place. So they're going to have to, if Indiana's going to have to play a perfect game in this series to win. They're going to have to play flawless basketball. Don't turn the ball over. And same with OKC. They can't turn the ball over against Indy. That'll get fast break points. And it'll play right into the Pacers game. So we'll see. This is going to be a very fun matchup. But I'm going to go OKC in 6 over the Pacers. And it starts tonight, game 1, and then game 2 won't be till Sunday. And then after that, it'll switch to Indianapolis for game 3, I believe, Wednesday. So we'll see what happens there. We got a comment in the section. Here we go. This guy's name is Untame. Hope I said that right, Untame, on YouTube. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it. He says rooting for Indy, but OKC in 5. Who you got? What you got? I got OKC in 6. I think Indiana can get at least a game, maybe 2. Again, with OKC, sometimes they don't shoot the ball very well. They have nights where they're a little bit off. But I just feel like OKC's depth, their youth, and their athleticism, I think it's going to be a little too much for the Pacers. Even though they got Halliburton, Turner, Naismith, Nembhard, can guys like Nembhard and Naismith continue to play well, carry over that great play into the NBA Finals? We'll see about that, but I just feel like OKC is the better team in this series. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. So, yeah, and then Untame again on here says, I think Lou Dort and AC are going to terrorize Tyrese. Yeah. They're just so good defensively, Untame. It's their length. Caruso, I mean, against Denver, the way he handled Joker in that series, I mean, my God, man, like he's almost a foot taller than Caruso, Jokic. And Caruso just was like just hugging him. Joker just couldn't get anything going. Like, I mean, he got his points, but like he made it so difficult for him. I mean, that just shows you how great Alex Caruso is defensively. I mean, Tyrese is going to have to really play well, and he may not be the guy in this series. This is where other guys like a Naismith or a Nembhard, Siakam, they're going to have to step up, and that's another matchup I can't wait to see. The Siakam, in the front court, they got size. Dort and Holmgren, Jalen Williams, can Siakam, score at will? That's going to be another key. One of those two guys are going to have to step up, Siakam or Halliburton. They're going to have those like superstar type games, if they're going to have a chance. So. All right, but I'm a Celtics fan. Watching OKC Denver game 7 annoyed me so much because they were fouling Joker all game. Yeah, I mean, I'll say this. They were calling it both ways. Now, if it was just Joker getting fouled and OKC was, getting the benefit of the calls, then yeah, I would agree with you. But I thought it was called both ways. I think it was fine. And I'm kind of glad the refs let them play. We're like last year and years before that, last few playoff years, we've seen a lot of, whistles in the game. This year it's been, the refs have kind of, swallowed the whistles a little bit, let them play, which is good. Let the players decide. And, that's what I like. That's what I grew up on, 80s, 90s basketball as a Laker fan. I mean, my God, and you're a Celtics fan, Untamed. You saw that McHale clothesline on Kurt Rambis. That back then that was just a common foul, you know. I mean, you're not going to see that today. Obviously, they're going to throw you out of the game, but you know, I'm just talking about aggressiveness. I like seeing that aggressive style of defense, you know, come back. Let the players decide the game, in my opinion. That's all. So yeah, okay. And anybody that's just tuned in, I'm just letting you know that I got OKC over the Indiana Pacers in 6 games. So I cannot wait to start. And it's going to start at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific. I'm here Pacific time. So I'm going to get off here in a couple minutes. I'll really just comment on Tame. And thanks, by the way, on Tame for um, the comments tonight. Appreciate that. That helps me out a lot, you know, grow this show. I like the physicality, but there's a line I didn't feel too. It didn't feel two-sided, in my opinion. Okay, that's fine. I mean, you know, I felt, you know, refs were okay both ways, but that's fine. I mean, if you think they weren't, then that's all good. Um, but I will say this. I mean, I think there's going to be more physicality in this series. You know, especially for Indiana. You know, they can be physical, and that could be one advantage they have over OKC. It was more of a finesse type of team. You know, even though Caruso can be very physical defensively, like the rest of OKC, you know, they rely on their athleticism and their length to guard, you know, the perimeter and guard inside. So, you know, if the Pacers, you know, get physical, they can, you know, that could be a mental advantage, not just a physical advantage, but a mentality that, you know, OKC hasn't faced yet. So that could be very interesting there. But we'll see how this plays out. Chet versus Miles should be interesting. Similar play styles on both ends. Yeah. Um, my one worry with Miles Turner though is that he does pick up some unnecessary fouls, and that can't happen in this series. He has to be a little more disciplined defensively. He can't just keep reaching in and reaching in. Sometimes he has a habit of that, trying to go for the steal there, and you know, especially early in games because he got in foul trouble. You know, in a couple games in the Knicks series that you know they had to take him out, and that you know that hurt Indiana on the boards. So Miles Turner has to be a little more disciplined, you know, on the defensive end. Um, you know, because they're going to need him offensively too. You know, especially for a guy that can stretch the floor, shoot the 3-pointer, um, and their offensive rebounding. You know, and defensive rebound to get him on the break. So he's got to be a little more disciplined defensively. Chet Holmgren, I mean, you know, he's been struggling shooting the ball. You know, it wasn't until the Minnesota series where I would say around game 4 and 5 he started hitting shots. The last thing you really want is Chet Holmgren to start hitting his series. So, you know, what I would do if the Pacers, you know, try to be a little physical with him. Maybe double team Chet. Um, you know, make him shoot the ball. You know, because he's been struggling there. Um, you know, again, and I would also, you know, OKC likes to run a bit of pick and roll. You know, try and stop that. You know, maybe play a little zone. Force the Thunder to, you know, have to shoot the ball more. Take them out of, you know, have SJ not penetrate as much. You know, close that lane there. You know, that may help. So Tame. So I'm also from LA, and all my friends are Laker fans. They all want Braun to retire already, so they all can rebuild sooner rather than later. What are your thoughts? Uh, yeah, I mean, you traded for Luca. You have to build around him now. He's your future, and Luca and LeBron are two different kind of players. You know, LeBron prefers having shooters around him. With Luca, he needs the big men around him. You know, for the lob passes. Um, you know, for me, I'm not worried about Luca offensively. I'm worried about his weight. He needs to get it down. Um, when's the last time you seen Luca Doncic jump? I haven't seen him jump in a while. He was doing a lot of, step back threes, not even getting his feet off the ground. I mean, yes, he's a gifted offensive basketball player, but I would like to see him really step up defensively. He's never going to be great defensively, but he really needs to step up his game more, so he can make others around him good. I think this summer we need to go after, a center. There's not really a lot out there. Maybe like a Clint Capella from Atlanta, get him out there to the Lakers, get a lob threat for Luca. But again, with LeBron, it's a little tough because again, LeBron thrives when he has shooters. So you got two different types of guys clashing offensively, but LeBron's going to be back. He's going to pick up his $53 million option, I believe it is. So he's going to be back for another year. They got to make it work. But it's going to be tough, when you're in a Western Conference, when you got OKC, Minnesota, Denver, San Antonio could be getting better. Hopefully Wemby is 100% coming back with, from that blood clot. That's going to be tough. Do I think the Lakers can win a championship next year? No. I mean, a lot of things have to fall in their place, in their favor. I just don't see it happening. But if they're going to be competitive, they need to get a center. Need to get another shooter. Guys like Gabe Vincent. Not the answer. Hopefully Rui Hachimura can, try to have a comeback here. He struggled for the most part this year. Disappointing. So I don't know where you go, but the Lakers, they're going to compete next year. You got to get a center, got another player, a shooter who can, hit shots, mid-range and, behind the 3-point line. You need a lob threat, so it's going to be tough. There's a lot of slim pickings out there in the free agency. So, and with the Lakers salary, assuming LeBron picks up that $53 million option, which he will most likely, really limits you. So, you don't want to get into that second apron, as they say. We're in that first apron right now. So and another thing, is Luka going to resign? Is he going to, get that extension, sign that extension before, I believe it's August. He has to figure out if he's going to, sign long term or he's going to play out the season and go in the free agency next year. I believe the Lakers are going to get the deal done, pretty soon, within a month or so. So I'm not really worried about it. He's been slimming down, but can he keep it up in the off season? That's the question. Yeah. Yep. Because he's going to play for his country, Slovenia. He has to be 100% healthy. I mean, keep the weight down. They had I don't know if you saw the other night or a few weeks ago, he was out to dinner with Pelinka, the GM, and it was just him and Pelinka and another person. So it goes to show you right there that they're committed to Luka and they want him to succeed, help this team win a championship. And so they're going to do what it takes. But it's up to Doncic. It's up to him. He's got to be committed, on the court and off the court, for this Lakers team to get back to where they want to be. Also, the Mark Willie trade was perfect. Can't believe it didn't go through. I know at the time it sounded good, but if you really look at it, Mark Williams had a lot of injuries. He only played he's only played a third of his NBA career. He's missed like over 80 games throughout his career. And in a way, I'm glad it didn't go through because, yeah, he's got some, offensive capabilities. He's a lob threat for Luka, but defensively, he's not very good. And he plays on the Hornets. I mean, you know, defensively, I just don't think he's that good from what I've seen. So, you know, i- in a way, I'm glad it didn't work out because I think if we would have had him there, who knows if he could stay healthy for one. And defensively, can he could he have provided a spark? I don't know. Offensively, yeah. But defensively, I don't know. He hasn't shown that he can be reliable on the defensive side of the floor. So there were concerns there as well, and his health, obviously. Boston's going to have a totally different team next year. Too expensive. It's a tank season, in my opinion. What a bummer. Jason Tatum. Hate seeing that. And, I know there's some Laker fans that are just, I've seen online, just real jerks, like, they're glad he got hurt. I'm like, come on, stop. That's not cool. Jason Tatum, I like the guy. Just a shame what happened. It really is. Now you're going to lose him for next year. Is it a tank year? I don't know. You still got Jaylen Brown. It won't be a championship year. I can tell you that much. But I think you're still good enough to make the play-in game or the playoffs. East is not that strong. I mean, the Knicks, Pacers, Phillies. You can never rely on Joel Embiid. Paul George, you can't rely on him either. I like Maxey, but I wish they'd build around him, but they're not going to do that. Milwaukee, no Damian Lillard. He's out next year as well, tore his Achilles. Giannis might be out of town, so it don't look good. I think Boston will be okay. Championship, no, I agree, but they are expensive. They may have to make some moves. They're not going to keep guys like Peyton Pritchard. I think is a free agent. A couple of free agents. Horford's getting older. So it's going to be a weird year next year for Boston. This may be. I don't want to say. I don't think it's a tank season, but I do think it's a year where you're not going to do much, but you're not going to be bad either. They're still a solid team, in my opinion. Mark is 23. Those things might change. Who knows? Maybe they will. But, again, the injuries and his not being good defensively is a worry. And, some people are saying maybe we go back and try and trade for him again. No, I don't see that happening. And I don't think the Hornets would do it either. So they can just stop talking about that one. Luke and AI or Luke and Al are the only free agents. Oh, okay. So Luke Kennard, or I'm sorry, Cornette, and Al. Yeah, Al. I think he's probably gone. He may retire, but need a big. Yeah, you could use that as well. Here's Johnny. Hey Johnny, what's up, man? Ben, why do you have transcript on? It's taking up all the comments. You like only seeing your self-talk. Yeah, maybe I forgot to show comments on the stage. Okay, I'll have to take a look at it. Were you trying to comment Johnny on Facebook? Yeah. All right. Let me see if that works. Al might retire. I agree. I think he will too. I mean, he's already won a championship. He had a great career. I mean, Al Horford's done it all, and he's won an NBA title. He won 2 national titles with Florida in the mid 2000s. So, great player, very good player. You should definitely appreciate him for having him. He's been one of those guys that's been very consistent, plays hard, and he deserves it. He definitely deserves a great career and a ring, and he got that. So But we'll see what happens. Maybe he plays another year. Who knows? Here's Johnny. Never mind. Okay. Never mind. All right. Well, I'm gonna step out, guys. Because I gotta get going. I got some stuff to do before the game comes on tonight. So I want to thank Untamed in the comment section. Johnny, same thing. I'll read one more. Quickly, who's your all-time starting five with primary positions strictly? Wow. So we're talking all-time top five. Okay, well, at guards, shooting guard, Michael Jordan. Point guard, Magic Johnson. Center, Bill Russell. Forwards, man. I'll go Bird and Tim Duncan. He was a center too, but he could play the forward position as well. So those are my five. Let's see, I got Magic, Jordan, Braun, Duncan, Kareem. Yeah, I mean that's good too. I want to say Kareem, but Bill Russell was Bill Russell. I mean, Kareem was great too. He had the skyhook, but I got to kind of keep it unbiased in a way because, I could say, Kareem, Magic, those are two Lakers, but I got to be honest. I mean, you're telling me to go by position, and that's what I'm doing. So, but I mean, top five NBA players of all time for me, personally, just not position wise, but I would go Jordan 1. I would go Magic 2. I'm gonna go Bill Russell. Bird. And I'd go Kareem. So those are my top five all time, just no matter what. I would put Braun just right outside of it. LeBron James, number 6. Yeah, I mean, it's always debatable. I mean, just depends. What I just go by all eras. I would say, like the 2010s. I mean, LeBron James is the greatest player in the 2010s. Him and Steph Curry were the two guys. In the 2000s, I would say Kobe and Tim Duncan. In the 90s, it was Jordan. The 80s, Magic, Larry, Kareem. So Johnny said I'd take Kareem over Russell. Okay, no, that's fine. Yeah. But again, I was being a little unbiased. I don't want to, as a Laker fan, Magic, Kareem, but they are in my top 5 of all time, just as players, not just. But this is by position. So, at least we both agree Steph's not number 1. Oh yeah. No, I mean, I think Steph Curry is the greatest shooter of all time. Greatest shooter of all time, without a doubt. You got to give him that, even though it's a different era. Different era now. The 3-point line. That's another thing that really drives me nuts. Is this 3-point shooting? Like every time you're on a fast break, the days of taking it, dunking it, or for a layup. No, you know what they do? They go on the break, and then when they get to that 3-point line, they stop, shoot the 3. Like, come on, guys, get the simple 2. It's the most high percentage shot in the world is the dunk and the layup. But no, you want to just hawk threes and come on. I mean, but that's the era we live in now. So that's that new style of basketball. I guess you could thank Curry and the Warriors for that, but whatever. I'm old school. I prefer it. So, oh man, the comments are coming up. Thanks, by the way, again. If Jerry West is considered a point guard rather than a shooting guard, I'd also pick him over Steph at 2 and then Curry at 3. Speaking point guards again. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, I would at point guards, I got to put Isaiah in the top 3 or 4. Isaiah Thomas. I didn't like him as a player. I think he's a real dickhead, but you can't deny how great Isaiah was. Very good point guard. John Stockton, another great point guard. Him and Karl Malone, pick and roll. Stockton was incredible. I don't think he gets enough credit. But he was fun to watch for sure. I don't know. Bird made those shots injured. I'd give him the edge over Steph just on that. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. But I mean, with Steph, though, the way he makes his 3-pointers sometimes, he'll make them from like 30 feet, 40 feet. I mean, the way he could shoot off his back foot, I mean, it's just incredible. Like, the Bird was great. I mean, Larry was like, there was a quote one time, I forget who it was, that said, Larry Bird was the only white basketball player that made my dick hard. Like, that was the funniest thing I've ever heard in my life. But that just showed you how great Larry Bird was. I mean, he was the 1%. I mean, as a Laker fan, you hate Boston, but my God, man, you can't hate Larry. I mean, Larry was that MFer. I mean, he just said, you know what? F you. I'm hitting this 3. You're not stopping it. But then the injuries really hit him, and he was just never the same. 9 finals, man. Larry Bird was just never the same after that. So, that back really killed him. And that's too bad because but that just shows you how tough he was too. I mean, he played very physical as well. Defensively, he got to you. I mean, he's just one of those guys, man. Even though he was a Celtic, I tip my hat on. If I did, I'd tip my hat to him. He was one of the top 5 ever. Can't argue that. He was just that good. So, well, on that note, I'm going to step out, man. This was a lot of fun today. Thank you so much, guys, for commenting. Untamed, Johnny, appreciate the comments today. This is a lot of fun. Now, I got to get ready to cook some dinner and watch the game tonight. I cannot wait. As far as tonight, they say OKC's favored by 9.5. I would take Indiana tonight. Not to win, but Indiana, I think, is going to make it a close game. 9.5 is a lot of points. So I'm going OKC for the win, but I'm going with Indiana to take the points in this one. So, and Untamed says, good stream. Thanks, Untamed. Appreciate it. Appreciate it, man. And please give me a like, share, and follow on my YouTube channel, Ben Cornett 9015. Let everybody know I greatly appreciate it. I will be getting on more often. It's football season's coming up, so that's when you're going to see me. Work life, just life in general, been very busy, so haven't had as many shows to do. Obviously, it's more with me these days. It's all about the NFL, so that's where I get the majority of my views. We're only a couple months away, a little over a month away from training camp, so we're definitely going to talk about that. And we're just going to do shows every week, and I'm a Tampa Bay Bucks fan, so we're covering the Bucks as well. Johnny says, go Pacers. All right. And Untamed, yes, sirs. All right. Hashtag yes, sirs. Hashtag go Pacers. With that being said, guys, thank you so much. I'm going to step out. Have a good evening, and I will see you next time right here on Have At It. Good night, everybody.